time to talk some NFL free agency. What is going on, y'all? Faiz Sports Talk back at it with another video talking, of course, some NFL. And here to give you guys my preview for the Bears free agency. As you can see behind me, we've got the whiteboard. So I'm going to be going over all of that on the whiteboard with you guys. But before I do, if you're new to the channel, make sure to go ahead and subscribe if you have not done so already. Guys, do it right now. Bringing you the best free agency content, all off-season draft, everything, all right? You don't want to miss out. Hit the bell icon. Make sure you're following me on all my social media platforms. Links is always down below for that. Let's get started. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what has already happened in the offseason for the Bears prior to even free agency starting, and that is the following. They've cut Buster Skrine. They've cut Bobby Massey. They have restructured the contracts of Khalil Mack, Eddie Jackson, Cody Whitehair. They've franchise tagged A-Rob. And so all of these moves have already happened, and that leaves us now with a cap space of currently about $4 million, which isn't a lot. What does that mean? That means that there are still moves to be made. All right, so I told you we can always cut more players. We can obviously extend guys and trade salary cap space that way, or we can trade players, all right? So there's a lot more that is going to be happening for the Chicago Bears to increase this number right here. But let's take a look at needs, all right? And we'll go over here and talk about the Bears' needs, all right? We'll start obviously with the biggest question for the Bears, and that's at quarterback, right? So I have been telling you guys, Mitchell Trubisky is not coming back to the Chicago Bears. It's not happening. Let it go. Let's just forget about it. Nick Foles is still under contract, but obviously if Nick Foles is our starting quarterback for the 2021 season, then the offseason was an utter failure and disaster, and Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, thankfully at that point, would probably be headed out of Chicago on the first flight they could find. Okay, so quarterback is obviously a position of need. The Bears are going to do everything they can to acquire a quarterback, whether that is in free agency or trade. I've told you guys I don't see it happening in the draft for a multitude of reasons, but the biggest one is the fact that we are in a win-now situation, and so the Bears do not want to tie themselves to a rookie quarterback, knowing that they need to win now. All right, and I'm talking about Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, all right? So free agency or trade, we obviously know the big names out there, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, those are the number one options. But if not, then after that, I've told you guys that, you know, if it's not those guys, who else is out there? And kind of for me, I would tell you that the best options outside of Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, if it doesn't end up happening for the Bears in free agency and trade, so I'm kind of including trade here as well, is going to be the following. Sam Darnold, and I'll explain each of these. Gardner Minshew. All right. I wouldn't mind that either. And then we can talk about maybe a Teddy Bridgewater. And then a Marcus Mariota. Okay. So these are the other options here. And that's how I would probably rank them 1, 2, 3, and 4. Maybe switch Bridgewater and Mariota. But essentially, folks, I've told you guys this before. You know, it's really, 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 really bad after Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. The free agency pool sucks. It's just flat out disgusting. All right, so I'm telling you guys, this right now. If we rush to sign a Ryan Fitzpatrick or a Jameis Winston or an Andy Dalton or an Alex Smith, that's going to be an utter disaster. Utter disaster. We can wait as long as we want for Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson because there's absolutely nothing to lose. All right? But as always in life, you got to have a plan B, C, D, etc. It just depends on if the Bears have exhausted all their options on getting Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. And if they have, and those teams are not moving those guys, then I believe these are the next best guys here. Sam Darnold to me is a clear number one option because you don't have to pay him for a year. He's still young and has potential. And so hopefully maybe you can go ahead and, you know, in a new situation, revitalize him and showcase that he was, you know, a top 5 pick for a reason. These other guys, Minshew, Bridgewater, Mariota, obviously don't have as much potential as Darnold, but certainly better than those other guys that I mentioned. All right, so quarterback is obviously the biggest need by far. It's not even close. All right, so not even close. We take a look at the other positions here. Running back. All right, so quarterback, I'm going to just put that as a check. Running back, we've got David Montgomery. He's our clear number one running back, our bell cow, if you will. Tariq Cohen's going to be returning this year from injury, so that's going to be great. But behind him, or behind those two, there's really not much else, right? Cordell Patterson's a free agent. Let's see if he returns or not. Obviously, he's more of a kick returner than a running back, but he played running back for us. I don't mind CPAT returning, but I don't care if he doesn't, right? So if we need to clear up salary cap space to get a big-time player and CPAT has to be the guy that we have to cut or not bring back, sure, I'm fine with that. But again, if we want to bring him back, cool. So I'm kind of like, whatever about Cordell Patterson. But I do think we need to sign another running back for sure, just because, like I mentioned to you guys, David Montgomery goes down, you don't have any running back depth. So I do think running back is a position of need, but obviously much, much, much less important than quarterback. And it's probably just a veteran that you can have stashed behind David Montgomery just for injury purposes, okay? But otherwise, looking decent, all right? So wide receiver, next up. We got A-Rob, we franchise tagged him. Now keep in mind, you can still come to a extension with Allen Robinson by July. So it's not set that, he's only going to play on the tag. Behind A-Rob, you've got Darnell Mooney, who obviously is on his rookie contract. We don't have to worry about him. But then after that, you got Anthony Miller and you got Juwan Wims. And both of these guys, I believe, are candidates to be cut to clear up salary cap space. I would cut them. Anthony Miller's been a disappointment, way too inconsistent. I would look to bring in other receivers. So we do need a wide receiver 3, a wide receiver 4, if we don't bring back Anthony Miller or Juwan Wims, all right? But again, not as big of a position we need as quarterback, but still a little bit more depth at wide receiver won't hurt. Let's move on to tight end. We've obviously got Cole Kmet, our first-round draft pick from last year, who showed flashes in the second half of the season. Jimmy Graham. I know a lot of you guys think I hate Jimmy Graham. He was very productive for us last year. Let me take that back. He was productive for us last year. Obviously, in the red zone, he was a great weapon. But the thing with Jimmy Graham is I feel the same way about him as I do Cordell Patterson. If he comes back, okay. If he gets cut, I'm fine with it as well. So point being is it doesn't matter to me much either which way. All right, with Jimmy Graham. But if you do cut him, it's a pretty decent chunk, $7 million. All right, so we have Cole Kmet. He's a feature at the tight end position. So I don't believe the Bears will be addressing tight end. If they cut Jimmy Graham, maybe sign a backup. But again, you have Demetrius Harris. Maybe you want to bring him back. So to me, tight end, I think we're pretty set with Cole Kmet. And depending on what happens with Jimmy Graham. All right, so that's where the offensive skill players stand. All right, and then finally, the offensive line. In terms of the offensive line, it's clear our biggest position of need on the offensive line is tackle. We cut, obviously, Bobby Massey, which I mentioned earlier. So in terms of who we have, I mean, we're pretty set with, Cody Whitehair, with Alex Bars, with James Daniels, Sam Mustafa, right? So we need an offensive tackle. I believe the Bears will address this in the draft more so than free agency, just my gut feeling, just because of the lack of resources, obviously financially, but not hurting too much on the offensive line. Again, the offensive line wasn't great. It's still a position of need, absolutely, but I believe they'll address it in the draft versus free agency. So overall, taking a look at just the offense, and I'll get to the defense. Quarterback, obviously a position of need. Running back, you do need a backup running back, so I will say yes. But again, let me make a smaller check because it's not as important. Again, depth on wide receiver. Tight end is not a position of need. And I believe offensive line. So quarterback, offensive line, and then depth right here. In terms of free agency, quarterback is going to be addressed in free agency or trade. Offensive line, I believe, is going to be addressed in the draft. And then, when we're taking a look at running back and wide receiver, I think it's going to be a mix of both free agency and the draft. All right, let's go ahead and move on to defense and special teams. And I'm going to just tell you right now, I think we're good on special teams. Obviously, we've got Cairo Santos. We have Patrick O'Donnell that we re-signed, and then Patrick Scales. So we're fine with special teams. It's not a concern to me at all. Cairo Santos, I told you, proved to us that he's worthy of being our long-term kicker, and we gave him a contract extension, and that was very well deserved. All right, let's take a look though at the defensive line. Okay, so when I take a look at the D-line, the biggest difference to us, the Bears, is going to be the fact that Eddie Goldman's coming back. Okay, so Eddie Goldman's return is going to be huge because you're essentially getting a star in free agency, almost like, right? When we didn't have him last year. So that's great. You still have Akeem Hicks, but he could potentially be traded, right? Maybe to clear up salary cap space, and that would put a need at defensive line. And then you've got Bilal Nichols, right? So D-line wise, pretty solid. So again, Nichols, Hicks, Goldman, you're pretty solid. But again, if you decide to move off of Akeem Hicks, now it becomes a question mark. So again, to me, D-line isn't that much of a position of need, but certainly maybe some depth wouldn't hurt. All right, linebackers, we're stacked at linebacker. Obviously, you got Khalil Mack, you got Roquan, you got Danny Trevathan. You got our signing last year, Robert Quinn. So you're absolutely stacked. They re-signed Mario Edwards. That's not a position of need at linebacker. Secondary, you got Eddie Jackson. You got Kyle Fuller. You got Jalen Johnson. They obviously cut Buster Screen, which I'm totally fine with. So maybe you re-sign. I do think you re-sign Tayshaun Gibson. Bring him back because he was worthy of it. And I mean, other than that, maybe a little bit of depth here. But honestly, folks, defensively, you're fine, right? You could obviously add a little bit more to the D-line, depending on what happens. But linebacker, secondary, totally fine. I don't think the Bears need to go crazy here or address any pressing needs. So it's really more so on the offensive line at the quarterback position is where I believe most of the resources are going to be allocated. All right, so here we go. Overall, this is essentially what the Bears are going to have to look for in free agency and potentially the draft in terms of their positional needs. Again, this is not in order. Actually, let me put it in order for you guys. Number one by far, not even close. Starting quarterback, starting quarterback, starting quarterback. Number two, I would say an offensive tackle. That is the second most important. And then after that, really, I wouldn't, be so rigid with the rest of these. Probably get a little bit more D-line depth, a backup running back, a backup receiver, or third wide receiver, and then some secondary depths. But really, it's this and this, all right? So to me, this is going to be addressed in free agency or trade. And then when we take a look at a backup offensive tackle, I'm going to say draft for that one. And then the rest of these, it could be a mix. But again, folks, this is what you need to focus on. So overall, here are my thoughts. I'm not expecting anything huge for the Bears in terms of free agency outside of the quarterback position. Actually, not in free agency. Yeah, it's going to be in trade because a big signing would not be a Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? Offensive line. That might be a big signing in free agency, but don't expect the Bears to make much noise just because of, the reasons I've listed here. All right. The biggest noise that's going to happen this offseason is going to be via trade for a quarterback. All right. Rest of it, not going to be big moves. Don't have a lot of salary cap space, but expect moves to be made in terms of possibly cutting Jimmy Graham, possibly cutting Anthony Miller, Jawan Wims, trading Akeem Hicks, extending Allen Robinson, extending Kyle Fuller. There's a lot of things that can potentially happen for the Bears to create salary cap space. But this is what I would say their biggest needs are heading into free agency. So let me know what you guys think. If you agree or disagree, as always, thanks for watching.